How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another video on cheap hot hatchbacks. Now when I say cheap, I'm being quite liberal with the term on this occasion because hatchbacks are going up in value significantly, particularly for new ones. So to get into the top tier of hot hatch is becoming more and more difficult. So I was thinking to myself, if I wanted to get into a top tier hyper hatch style car, how much money would I have to spend to get something reasonably good? And I think between the £8,000 to £20,000 mark, there are some really great cars. If you like this kind of content, please hit the like button. 2,000 likes and I'll do the same video but at a much higher price range to kind of show how mad hot hatches have become. Don't forget I'm in the UK, so prices in other countries may differ, and don't forget also that maintenance, repairs, insurance and road tax are all important to remember. Let me know in the comments down below what your favourite hot hatchback is. Mine personally is probably an old Golf GTI. I just think they are so beautiful and they embody what it is to be a hot hatch. Otherwise maybe a Renault 5 Turbo 2, that'd be pretty cool, but yeah, I'm into classics, so let me know in the comments down below what yours is. But without further ado, let's get into the video. First up, we have the Alfa Romeo Giulietta QV, which is a 1.75 litre turbocharged inline-4 engine, which puts out 231 brake horsepower and will do 0 to 60 in 6.6 seconds. Not particularly quick by hot hatch standards, which is in part due to it sharing its engine with the Alfa 4C, but weighing almost 450 kilograms more. Now, I do think this car looks stunning, and it benefits from a bunch of cool features to make it look and feel like a properly nice hot hatch, like the more aggressive body kit and the lowered ride height, as well as those sporty alloy options, but I do feel like this is a bit of a sheep in wolf's clothing as it's not really that quick. However, for Italian leather sport seats with that really pretty interior and good external looks, as well as the Alfa badge and the fact that it's quick enough for what you need it for, it's a pretty cool offering. £12,000 minimum that I could find these listed for, and for 20 grand you'll be looking at a 2015 model with around 20,000 miles on the clock. Owners have been very positive about reliability despite the badge, and though some have complained about build quality on the interior and there have been a few lemons, there are pages and pages of happy owners on forums. Next up is another not particularly hot hatch, but it's a cool purchase for a slightly different reason. It's the Abarth 695, which is a 1.4 litre turbocharged inline-4 engine, which makes 180 brake horsepower, the least power on this list, taking it from 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds. Normally 695s are the special edition Abarths, like the Yamaha or Biposto special editions, but I really like the Rivale special, as it's built alongside the yacht company Riva, so it takes a lot of inspiration from yachts. But it certainly doesn't handle like a yacht, as this little hot hatch has gained a bunch of good press around its handling, being both stable and fun. I also really love the interior on these, especially in Rivale spec again, with the mix of carbon fibre and leather, properly nice stuff. These start at around £14,000, you'll be looking at a 2018 model with very low miles for your 20k. These have had problems with infotainment and a few other small electrical issues, as well as some questions around build quality, but all in, owners have been very positive about reliability. They are relatively new though, so the worst may be yet to come. Let's jump now to the mini hatch John Cooper Works GP2, which is powered by a 1.6 litre turbocharged inline-4, which puts out 214 brake horsepower and will manage 0 to 60 in 6.1 seconds. The idea behind this car was to build a track-focused, top-of-the-line version of the second-generation new mini hatch. There was also a GP model for the first gen, hence the GP2 name we've adopted for this one. It benefits from a slightly tuned N18 block, which is hugely important as the previous N14 in older second-gen JCW suffered from all kinds of issues. It only comes as a 6-speed manual and has a bunch of track-focused features like the adjustable coilies, 6-piston Brembo front brakes with brake ducts, an actually useful rear diffuser as well as under tray, the massive spoiler, a whole bunch of carbon fibre, and the deletion of the rear seats to save weight. You get a little roll bar instead, but I've heard it does very little for the car's rigidity, which is a shame. Considering this is the second oldest car on this list, it has held its value well, starting at around £17,000 at the bottom end, while 20 grand will get a 2013 model with around 60,000 miles on it. There are some known problems on this block, like thermostat leaks, the high pressure fuel pump, oil pressure solenoid leak, and the turbo oil line, so definitely don't assume that the car's fine because it has the N18. In 7th we have the Vauxhall Astra VXR, which isn't renowned for its reliability, but it is pretty rapid with its 2 litre turbocharged inline-4, which makes 276 brake horsepower and will get to 60 in 5.8 seconds. This is a hugely well equipped car considering, built on the Astra J platform, with an LSD for maximum cornering performance, as well as a sporty exterior and interior that benefits from some nice Recaro bucket seats as well. It gets electronically controlled active suspension too, as well as a bunch of VXR logos dotted around the car to remind you that you're in an uprated Vauxhall, or Opel if you're in Europe. There's also an aero pack option for slightly more fiddly bits around the car if you're that way inclined. I'd say it does look pretty good. This is the cheapest car on this list, starting at around £8,000 for ragged examples, while 20 grand will get you one in very ideal condition. I would aim for around the 15k mark tops. As I already mentioned though, since the car's release there have been a bunch of issues with the gearbox, brakes and electricals in particular. Pistons have cracked on some unserviced cars, which means it's time to replace the entire engine. These problems sadly make the previous gen the more popular choice. In 6th we have the first of two cars that share an engine on this list, the Seat Leon Cupra 300, which has a 2-litre turbocharged inline-4 which makes 295 brake horsepower and will go from 0 to 60 in 5.6 seconds. This Cupra was built on the 3rd generation Leon, and that engine is the same as the one in the Mark 7 Golf R, just front-wheel drive instead of all-wheel drive. The Cupra 300 replaced the 290 in 2017 with that slightly higher output and comes as either a manual or DSG automatic, both of which have been given great reviews. However, reviewers and owners alike have ever so slightly criticised the car for being fast, but not that fun compared with other hot hatches in the same price range. The far more limited Cupra R gets far better reviews, but sadly it's a bit out of our price range. These start at around £17,000 and for 20 grand you get a 2017 model with around 30,000 miles on the clock. If you get an auto, make sure the DSG is serviced on schedule, as it's known to be very strong but just needs some love. Timing chains have also been known to fail on these, but it's a pretty rare issue, and outside of that I could only really find some owners complaining about high oil consumption. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you are, don't forget to hit the like button. As I said, 2,000 likes and I'll do the same video but at a high price range to look at those really expensive hot hatchbacks. And please hit the subscribe button. We are so close to 100,000 subs, it is insane. So thank you all for all the support and let's get it. It's hard to make a hot hatch video without including the Civic Type R, and in this case it's the FK2 model with its 2-litre turbocharged inline-4 which makes 305 brake horsepower and will get to 60 in 5.5 seconds. This is based on the 9th generation Civic, though it is the 4th generation Type R, originally revealed alongside the new NSX back in Geneva 2015. What's cool is that turbocharger, as it's the first ever Civic to have forced induction from factory. It also has a 6-speed manual box and an LSD, and was actually only £30,000 on release, so it hasn't depreciated all that much so far, though do remember we're in a used car price bubble. It is incredibly shouty in terms of aesthetics, with mad angles everywhere and that massive rear wing. Civic enthusiasts have also mentioned how massively different it feels to previous generations, as its focus is more on being a race car for the road, evidenced by its British Touring Car Championship entry. This is the most difficult car to find at under 20k, but there are a few examples, and you'll still be looking at pretty high miles for your 20k. Look for damage anywhere low on these cars. They do sit nice and flush, but can get damaged by curbs, etc. Reliability outside of that is very positive, but there are known issues with fuel starvation and poor change between 1st and 2nd gear. As I mentioned already, the Mark 7 Golf R shares its engine with the Leon Cupra 300, so it's a 2-litre turbocharged inline-4 that makes 295 brake horsepower, but it benefits from being all-wheel drive, so we'll get to 60 in 4.9 seconds. That all-wheel drive is a Haldex system, which cuts power to the rear when it's not necessary. You can get this as a 3 or 5-door hatchback, or as an estate instead if you prefer a bit of extra room, and I personally think an estate is pretty swag. Like the Cupra, it has a DSG or manual option, but also gets dynamic chassis control, which means petrolheads will no doubt chuck the car into race mode for the majority of the time. This is a hugely popular car and it's a target of theft, so do be wary. There are also loads of insurance write-offs, so make sure you check the history as well. £15,000, the lowest that I could find these listed for, and for 20 grand I found 2015 examples with around 60,000 miles on the clock. Reliability is not dissimilar to the Seat mentioned previously. The only other thing I'd mention is that the stock clutch is known to be quite weak, so if you're planning to get more power out of it, consider an upgrade. Taking third, we have the BMW M140i, which is a very cool 3-litre turbocharged inline-6, making 335 brake horsepower, which gets from 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds, and it's the only rear-wheel drive car on this list. This took over from the M135i with slightly more power and torque, as well as a few other minor tweaks. What's particularly special about it is that it has what BMW are best at sitting in the front end, an inline-6 block, which is likely the last of its kind in a hot hatch, as the more recent M135i has a 4-cylinder block instead, which just doesn't quite hit the same in terms of sound. The M140i is also quicker than the new M135i, and in my opinion ever so slightly better looking. The interior is also a really nice place to be, coming from the era where BMW really stepped up their interior game. These start at just under £19,000, making it the most expensive car on this list, but you'll still get a 2017 model with 40,000 miles on the clock for 20k. There are a few known problems with these, but the main one is an issue with crankshaft sensors on models built in a short period in 2018, so do check that this has been resolved by BMW if you get one from that period. Outside of that, owners have been very positive about engines and gearboxes. Just missing out on the top spot, we have the Audi RS3, which is a beautiful sounding 2.5 litre turbocharged inline-5 engine that makes 335 brake horsepower and will do 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. It's that classic formula, isn't it? A turbocharged inline-5 Audi Quattro. You really can't go wrong. Add on the slightly beefier body kit and larger alloys, as well as the performance features like the suspension and vented brake discs, plus the ESC and carbon fibre throughout, and you would have a properly nice car that you can both daily and hit 155 miles per hour in on an autobahn with ease. I also highly rate the interiors on these, with the sporty but understated vibe being right up my street. As an option, from factory it could be spec'd with buckets, but these are quite rare compared to the standard sports seats. These start at around £15,000, and as the oldest car on this list, for 20k you'll get a 2012 model with around 60,000 miles on it. The engine is renowned for being quite tough, so don't expect too many problems in that department. Instead, like the Golf R, there seem to be a really high number of insurance write-offs on these, so check for damage, and if you go for the auto, give it a test drive to check the gears change smoothly. Taking the top spot, we have the beast that is the Mercedes A45 AMG, which is a 2 litre turbocharged inline-4, making a massive 354 brake horsepower, which gets to 60 in 4.5 seconds. It also puts out 450 Nm of torque, which is pretty insane, especially when you compare this generation of the A-Class to former generations, which are far more boring and family-focused cars. Mercedes gave the car the 4MATIC system to put that power to the road in all-wheel drive, and distribute that torque more intelligently. Add on the bigger brakes, sorted suspension with electronic control, and all the fun bits on the exterior and interior, particularly with the aero pack, and you basically have one of the more exotic modern hot hatches. As it's a Mercedes, it sadly doesn't come in manual, and a lot of owners do complain about juddering automatic changes when in slow moving traffic. Other owners also complain that the interior feels cheap, but it does still look pretty good. These start at around £16,000, you'll be looking at a 2014 example with around 70,000 miles on the clock for 20k. If these have been serviced to schedule, they're supposedly pretty reliable, but those that haven't been have had problems with turbos and gearboxes, particularly on older models. Other than those key issues though, not bad. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I wanted to apologise as well. I'm actually really quite sick at the moment, so if it sounds really awkward throughout this video and I feel really nasally right now, that's my bad. My patrons as well for their support, and to you guys as well for watching. I'll see you in the next one.